Hey guys, so in this video, we'll be sharing an incident that happened to me several years back. But most importantly, I feel that I should impart whatever Lord Ganesha had initiated me with all of you, which should be very handy in the regards to Vedam recitation and learning. So a significant manifestation of Lord Ganesha in form happened during my stay in Puttaparthi in 2019 during my posting in the super speciality hospital for my electives. Now, if you notice, Lord Ganesha is somehow the mascot for Parthi. He is so ubiquitous there. I was doing my electives under the cardiology and plastic surgery department for about 5 weeks. Working hours ranged from 7 am to 5 pm daily for 6 days per week. So most of my time was actually spent within the hospital itself. My night routine, post-hospital hours, post-dinner, in Prashanti Nilayam in the ashram before retiring to bed involved a typical walk around the ashram with several stops at several Ganesha shrines within the ashram. It would be a very personal moment with the minimal crowd, contrary to daytime when there were so many people all around the ashram. Hence, I would actually spend time reciting some portion from the Vedas, one being the Ganapati Atharva Shirusham or the Ganapati Upanishad of the Atharva Veda. So this was a time when I had not commenced WhatsApp teaching and I had a lot of identity with the mind. We shall look at what this means. See, every time I recited the Vedam, my mind would start its inner chatter in terms of with the technicalities of the recitation, which I am very particular about. For example, the pronunciations, the intonations, the meters, the sandhis, and so forth. For example, to quote my inner mind, so, hey, the previous verse, did you give enough force to the recitation? Was the swaram at this particular aksharam correct? Hey, don't you think the verse at the start is supposed to have a high pitch instead of a middle one at this particular place? So forth. It was a very troubling period of time. So see, my being was not involved in the recitation. My monkey mind led the recitation due to nothing else but my ego. The feeling that I was the body and the mind which is reciting the Vedas. The sense of the body as the doer was a grave mistake I was doing. The worst part was when my mind dimension traveled to Malaysia to the kids I was teaching. See, this was during my final years in the medical school when I was actually teaching to a group of children in a temple weekly once. So my mind would intensify its voice. So do you think your kids are reciting this particular verse properly? All this inner chatter would go as I recited the Upanishad. So it will tell me to recall the recitations, right? My mind would actually suggest me to recall the recitations. And for example, to quote the inner chatter, don't you think they brought this particular aksharam in a high pitch instead of a low one? This kind of dialogues, this kind of monologues. So the conflict created in my mind was so intense that it would actually put me in a low mood and in a state of guilt. The guilt of a possibility of not being able to correct them. No communication through WhatsApp back then. Plus, I was away from Malaysia for 5 weeks. For example, to just give an example, if a particular student now, let's say I have a doubt and I want to check some part of the recitation, I can immediately WhatsApp them and have something come through a recording or a voice note. But that was not possible back then, and that put me in a lot of guilt and an unpleasant feeling, which is not supposed to happen when someone recites the Vedas, right? But here again, the ego, the feeling that me as a body and mind is imparting a particular knowledge which I feel so responsible for. So there was a lot of braining which I was always doing in regards to the technicalities, which I agree is the soul of the Vedas, because this has been greatly mentioned in the Taittiriya Upanishad of the Krishna Yajur Veda itself. But nevertheless, let's look at what Ganesha had to say. So this happened one day after my usual routine. I had recited in front of the majestic Vigraha at the entrance of the Kulwant hall. Now this Ganesha was initially inside the Kulwant hall. So I remember that the mental conflict was so huge during this particular recitation. I'm not sure why. Anyways, I retired to sleep after that. My room was situated in North 1 block near the Gayatri shrine, and I always slept with a mattress on the floor. Now I woke up the next morning by the echoes of a clear, high-pitched Veda recitation in my room, not too far away from me. I opened my eyes half asleep with my eyes still heavy, and I actually saw this Lord Ganesha sitting close to the other end of my mattress. He was in Padmasana in a yogic posture with eyes closed, and he was actually reciting the 10th Anuvaka of Shri Rudram. I actually remember vividly. It went Drape Andhasaspate and so forth. His recitation was at a very high pitch, and it had a piercing effect. Every sound actually pierced me, pierced my body, pierced my inner being. I could feel it going through me. I'm not sure how to put them into words, but it was the experience was so magnificent. And importantly, through his very act, the way he recited, he gave an important lesson. His gesture itself served as a lesson. Number one, recitation is to be made with body in a yogic posture, erect spine with Padmasana. Number two, strictly no movement. Not even hand gestures to indicate swaram as commonly done in some Vedic schools. Strictly no swaying of head, no movement of the eyes or anything. You should be stationary like a log, still. Number three, spine erect, eyes closed. Have yourself fully absorbed with the Vedas. Become one with the Vedas. Number four, recite with a very high pitch, loud and sharp voice. Now the way he portrayed these guidelines which I have mentioned for Vedam recitation is actually exactly as how Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba had trained his students. Nothing surprising though. So the moment I saw him, he stopped his recitation. He just halted. He opened his eyes and he stood up. He was actually barely a few feet tall. Like a toddler, he made leaps towards me. He literally made few tiny jumps with his tiny feet towards me. He reached near me, he came beside me, and he actually hit my head with his tiny trunk. It actually hurt and importantly made a clear message that this is a reality and not a vision or dream. With the hit and the contact, he transmitted his initiation in a flash. He actually initiated me. I went beyond the dimension of time and space in a state of being beyond the mind and body. I simply realized all that he had to convey or tell. There was no verbal communication here at all. The entire communication happened in the fourth dimension of Vak, which is the Para, which is wordless communication. It is the speech of absolute silence through initiation. Now, interestingly, the four dimensions of Vak, of speech, is actually part of the very Ganapati Upanishad itself. It comes in the verse Tvanchatvari Vaak Padani, which actually describes Lord Ganesha as being the very manifestation of all four dimensions of Vak. And here he expressed the fourth dimension, the most profound dimension of Vak or speech. Now his initiation, he told me not to recite from the mind. See, he did not physically tell, or it wasn't any telepathic communication. Through that touch with that trunk, that nanosecond, he just transmitted everything that he had to, and it just blossomed like a realization from within. Now he said that do not recite from the mind. The technicalities are important, but do not let them to lead the recitation. You lead it from your being. You recite from your heart with a stressless flow. His initiation was a life-changing one for me. I realized that the ego must be pulverized in regards to Veda learning. Your body is only an instrument through which the eternal Vedas express as Vak, as through your Vak. And importantly, you are beyond the body and the mind. You are consciousness, and the reverberation of that consciousness is the Vedas. So bring yourself in oneness with the Vedas, with the deity, the essence of the Vedas when you recite them. I returned to the physical dimension, and the mild pain was still present on my head. See, my night routine then continued, and I just surrendered any issues of technicality that ran in my mind to him. In my mind, I was like, yeah, since you talked so much now, so let you should take care of me, you take care of the students, you take care of all the problems. And trust me, though I meant it in a joking manner, it really happened. The moment I surrendered, the moment I started a burdenless recitation, the progress in whoever I taught improved so vastly. Learning became so effortless. It became so effortless because upon surrendering, the very source, the very consciousness takes the game, takes over the play. The initiation totally changed my attitude in learning, not just teaching the Vedas. And all I could say was everything happened really effortlessly. Anyway, soon I met the kitchen team of the Western Canteen, comprising Dr. Akshay from Mumbai, Shweta from Ukraine, and Chef Ido from Indonesia. And we disturbed the Ganeshas as a group instead. My personal time with him lessened henceforth, and we would just do a short Ganana Antva whenever we reached a particular shrine. So this is an image of Lord Ganesha at the canteen of the Super Speciality Hospital, who I would meet and say hi daily during breakfast and lunch. So, thank you for watching.